Hi there, I'm Mike. I'm in the core. I want to talk a little bit about an idea that I use in a lot of my second year classes, but that has ended up pervading a lot of my first and my third year classes too, that really kind of gets at one of the underlying notions that pops up in different forms in different classes. And because it underlays a lot of our courses, it's useful for bridging across from one course to another. If I teach a student in 120, for example, and then have them again later on in 210, I can bring it back up. Or the idea can be brought up, and some of the ideas that happen in 120 can filter into a 210 or a 240 or whatever course, and on into the junior year, on even into the senior year. I call this idea the big circle and the little circle. This is the big circle and the little circle. Now, it's a big circle and a little circle. It's not that complicated. But the real key in this is the idea of what this big circle represents. The big circle is a boundary. It's an intellectual boundary. It's a boundary between that which is knowable and that which is unknowable. Not that which is known and that which is unknown, but that which is knowable and that which is unknowable. And this first cropped up when I was teaching scientific revolutions, and I was talking about different ways people make knowledge, different ways people make meaning. There was a time that we call the scientific revolution where the deity started playing a different role in people's lives in a European intellectual tradition, and that deity, which looks like that, moved from being inside the circle to outside the circle. It moved from a thing that people knew very intimately and was a daily part of their lives, to a thing that was more distant, a more deist understanding. And when that deity moved out here, suddenly you had all of this stuff in here, nature, the physical world, that needed explained a different way. How do they explain it? Well, they had this new thing called science. In essence, that's what the scientific revolution is. This is one way to represent it. Now, this idea can be used in concepts of community, for example, when talking about the way people decide government. Are we going to be a theist democracy? Are we going to form our government based on very close, intimate understandings of deity? Is the deity the one who chooses who's in charge? Well, if that's the case, then you've got a deity in here in the knowable. If not, then you got a deity out here. This comes up in a class like Bodies, or class like 310, the Technology and Globalization, or Progress, or whatever we're calling it now. How do we understand the different epistemologies that people are using to decide things about what is progress? When Wright is telling us about they cut down that last tree on Easter Island, well, there's one way of understanding that says there's a poor ecological understanding and a good ecological understanding. But that's too simplistic. I think that's too simplistic anyway. There's another way to understand that that says there is a meaning being made of that tree that is, in our way of understanding, ecological. So we know the tree as being a part of our world. And because we have this notion of the knowable being things like nature, things like the environment, what we think of as the physical, natural environment, that tree is going to have that meaning for us. But if people have a spiritual meaning for that tree, or a political meaning for that tree, or an economic meaning for that tree that is different, they are creating a different boundary. They are wrapping their line around a different kind of knowledge, a different knowable. And so they then know that tree differently. The tree means something different. And then cutting it down may not be illogical in an ecological frame of mind, but logical in a different frame of mind, with a different way of knowing. All this diagram is, this big circle and little circle, is one way to get students to think about the concept of epistemology, the concept of different ways of knowing, different ways of making meaning. When they get this idea, when they understand that there are things that are knowable and things that are not knowable, then you can introduce the concept. Different ways of knowing have different knowables and different unknowables. And once they've got that down, then all sorts of conceptual theoretical worlds, abstract thinking worlds open up to them. That's all I wanted to talk about.